Hi, I'm Jules from Find the Gap, and today I'd like to talk to you about math anxiety. This is video one in a series of six, and today's all about physical symptoms in assessments. Now, math anxiety is something that, as a teacher for a long time, I didn't really understand, but I saw all the time, and I just didn't have a label for it. You think, oh, maybe that's just low self confidence. Oh, they don't seem happy today. Maybe there's something going on. Maybe they don't know what's happened. And I didn't actually really make the connection that we were dealing with anxiety, and in their body internally, we were going through a full fight or flight response. Now, for those of you who have anxiety or have had anxious moments, you know how debilitating that can be. And to think that children are actually doing this in a classroom in mathematics actually really shocks me, and it makes me really sad. And it's hard for the reason that I really want to do this series, because it gives parents and kids the chance to understand what's happening for them and some strategies and tools about how they can move forward given what they're experiencing. Because that's their world. What they're experiencing is exactly what they're experiencing for them. I can sit back as a teacher and go, oh, rubbish, it's not the end of the world. To them, that's maybe what it feels like. And there'll be lots of contributing factors about why, but none of that's actually relevant. It's all about for them, how do we shift them forward? How do we give them that confidence back? And part of that is about knowing and recognizing and seeing that there's a child here that doesn't maybe technically need support, that their skills are okay. But it's a huge red flag when they look like they can do it in the classwork, but they actually can't do it under assessment conditions. That's your big red flag that there's something going on here and it's not about maths. So today, physical symptoms. What does that look like for your child? What does that look like for your student that you're sitting there watching going, something not right here, and I don't know what that is? And the first is understanding that there's a whole lot of cognitive symptoms that are going on. So in their head, they are in negative self-talk. They're really doubting their ability. They're telling themselves they can't do it. They might be looking around. Everyone else gets it, but I don't. And these sort of thoughts, like anxiety and anxious thoughts, just take them down this rabbit hole where they become paralyzed to be able to do anything. If you've got all of that going on inside your head, and even if you know maybe that it's not quite right and you're trying to challenge those beliefs that are taking off on you, how do you concentrate on what someone's saying at the front of the room? How do you think through a problem that's sitting in front of you that you're not actually sure how to do? I don't know who has enough willpower and enough brain power in that moment to go, okay, I've got a million thoughts going on about how crap I am at maths. Oh, and here's algebra, and I'm going to get right into that. It's just too much. You just check out. And that's what I see over and over again is kids just check out. You know, they start doodling. They just take those moments where they've tranced out and they're staring into space and they don't even realize it. There's a good chance that there's a whole lot going in cognitively that we just aren't aware of. The second key thing for them is to understand physiologically what is going on. They may actually have sweaty palms. Their heart rate may actually have been elevated. They may be shallow breathing. We might actually start seeing kids that are really wound up going into panic attacks. And I have known this in a practice exam within my own extended family that ambulances were called because they weren't sure what was going on. And that's about pressure and anxiety in learning. It actually happens. I have firsthand experience of that. And it's really sad. It's just learning, and we put this pressure on the kids. They've got all this going on and they're putting this pressure on themselves as well. So understanding that there's actually physiological changes is really important. You might see them flush up. You might see them get more rigid and that tension coming through their body. Just by being observant, you can see that there's things going on for them that shouldn't be there. It's just school and it's just maths. To have those sorts of responses is something we really need to start being aware of and running some intervention for and giving them some support. As you can imagine, If that's what's going on inside your body and probably what's going on inside your head, you're not performing well in that assessment. And again, like I said before, it may have nothing to do with your knowledge or your skills. And this is when we come into these kids that we know they can do better, but they may be underperforming on what they've been able to do in less pressured situations. And whilst I am talking about the context of maths today, this is across the board. These kids probably do need some support. The first part of that is having a teacher or a parent in front of them that recognises that there's something not quite right. Now, do I think it needs to be made a big deal of? No, I actually don't. We just need to be able to take some pressure off. Maybe we can go back and do some more of that formative assessment stuff, because really the purpose of assessment in schools is to be able to see if they can demonstrate outcomes. Now, there are a lot of ways to do that, and they do not have to be under test conditions. So if you have a child that is struggling, it's really important to remember that actually the only time that that matters under assessment conditions is their Year 12 exams. Other than that, we can modify everything for them. And in that time, we can be working with them about how to handle pressure of assessments. The other key thing that I think is really important is behavioural symptoms to show us that they're not okay. Now, sometimes that can be the distracted, getting their phone out, looking to the person next to them, directly copying work. It can be playing up and causing issues in the classroom, being the class clown. They can all be strategies that kids use because they don't feel comfortable. But what that looks like in maths is generally the slumped back, hands away from the test, and they don't check out, and getting them to write. I still remember a boy in Year 7 that getting him to hold the pen was part of the challenge. And it wasn't until we really realised that there was a language issue because he didn't speak English at home. And then we layered all of this mathematical language, which really, I believe, is a second language. It's not logical or everyday, and it's actually got purpose. So we have to teach kids about the language of maths and what they're being asked for. That we actually started really breaking down for him. And it took about 6 months to get him to pick up a pen and have a go. And it was purely anxiety. The other little hint that we can have in assessments is that when kids, how a maths test is structured is normally that it's about skill and fluency first, and then we start to apply knowledge a little bit, and then we get into the challenging task. Can you actually take this knowledge and apply it? And if you've got a kid that's regularly only doing the fluency stuff and maybe a little bit, but can never get to the teamwork, it's a bit of a clue that something may be going on. They've maybe lost time because they're so overwhelmed in the task, and this is what we deal with here at home, that the time just escapes them. So they actually, by the time they've got themselves to a place where they think they can do it, the test is finished and they're off to the next class. So it's an underperformance due to the fact that they've wasted so much time because they're dealing with all of these other symptoms that are going on and not actually thinking about their maths. So there's lots in this, and I think it's really important to start these conversations about, is there a psychological anxiety that's playing out here, and how do we support children? How do we take away all these tests? How do we take away exams in Year 7 and Year 8 and Year 9? Because it's only for our results and our comparisons and our own validation that we've done well, rather than actually just letting them learn and love learning and being able to demonstrate their skills in more formative ways. And that's just my opinion. It's why I'm now doing this, and I'm not in schools anymore, because I don't agree with how often we are testing and assessing. I don't believe it's necessary. And I think it actually drives the anxiety far higher than we ever need it to be. At the end of the day, they're kids, and they need to be enjoying their learning process. This is setting them up for the rest of their lives and trying to find out what they want to be and what they want to do and how they're going to contribute to the world. And I just have so many adults in my world that you mention the word maths and I just see them shut down. And they have taken that into adulthood. They are successful people They are CEOs of companies. They are sales directors of multinationals. But their belief in themselves around mathematics and the anxiety that I can see just rise in an instant, the word maths, something we have to change. And it's something that needs to revolutionize to this generation. So thank you for joining me today. As you can tell, I've been talking for 10 minutes. Maths anxiety is something really important. And how do we maintain children's confidence in themselves and their belief in themselves as learners? How do we facilitate this growth mindset and their problem solving abilities and their ability and their willingness to take on challenges in a mathematics classroom? I will see you next time for video 2.